On that note, I'd like to call the Tuesday, September 27th school board meeting to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Ms. Ayers.
Present.
Segan.
Here.
Ms. Hazard.
Here.
Ms. Healy.
Here.
Mr. Hirons. Ms. Kidby.
Here.
Mr. McOsker.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. If everyone would stand for a moment of silence, and then we will have the colors presented by our Brook Point Navy ROTC. And Ms. Healy, will you lead us in the pledge at the right time? I would like to thank our wonderful Brook Point Navy JROTC. Our members this evening were Logan Petterini, Amy Reese, Kaylin Waldner, and Joseph Heinrichs. It's always great to have our students come and participate in our meetings as we honor our country. Next on the agenda, do I have an approval for the agenda?
Madam Chair, I have an amendment to the agenda. I would like to add a closed session to 11.02. The protection of the privacy of individuals and personal matters not related to public business is 2.2-37114. I'd like that added, please.
So is that a motion to approve the agenda with an amendment to add that particular exemption?
Motion to approve with that amendment.
Is there a second?
Just want to make sure that was 11.01 you were amending?
I'm adding 11.0.
You're
Yes.
amending 11.01?
That's correct.
Okay,
To
just
add an
wanted to
additional,
clarify,
sorry.
thank you.
Yes, sorry.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our awards, I would like to invite Ms. Carrie Neely to come forward for a presentation of awards this evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Benson. It is my pleasure to announce the winners of our C5W video contest. Last spring, teachers were challenged to share a snippet of their classrooms demonstrating C5W in action. Stafford County Public Schools has recently been recognized for being the largest school division to receive full accreditation in our state. While we will continue to implement Virginia's standards of learning with fidelity, C5W grounds this learning in all century skills, preparing our students for learning and life beyond SOLs. Tonight, I would like to share a glimpse of our winning teachers and students. And at this time, I would like to ask our winners to come forward as we present certificates. Each recipient will receive $250 for teaching materials supporting C5W in his or her classroom. And we would ask our principals, even if they're not prepared to come up with our teachers. So first, I'll call up Dan Reachard from Kate Waller Barrett Elementary. Along with Kim Austin, his principal. And next, we would invite, I did want to announce Ben Leitner could not be here tonight. He was our winner from North Stafford, so congratulations to Ben. Rachel Schuster and Carissa Herrick, both who collaborated as teachers. Their students also collaborated from Shirley Heim Middle. And thank you to Mary Grace McGraw as well. And Victoria Talcott, Rocky Run Elementary. Oh, there she is. And Nick Roman. Thejal Williams from Stafford Middle. And along with Mark Smith, her principal. And Brittany Scott from Rock Hill Elementary. And I know Tara Rivero is here with her. And Beth Halterman, come on up from Rock Hill Elementary as well. Beth and I started teaching together many years ago. We won't talk about how long ago, right, Beth? And finally, from Brook Point High School, Jill Van Hook. Along with Tammy Houck, her principal. And again, we just want to say thank you to all of our participants. We had more than 60 folks contribute videos. We did have a significant amount from Rock Hill Elementary, I might add. But if you have a chance, go on our C5W Twitter site and you can see all of the videos in full. You just got a little snapshot today. Thanks also to Bill Leap and his magnificent students for helping us. Those of us who are technology challenged really helped his support. Thanks, everyone. Congratulations.
Carrie, can you get in the picture?
Oh, I can. I'd be happy to.
All right, just look this way. Here we go. Thank you.
It's amazing. Okay. It's amazing the creativity we have in our schools that we had that many submissions, and it's just exciting to see what else is going to happen in C5W throughout the year. Moving on to our proclamation regarding designating October as Bullying Prevention Month. Ms. Egan, would you like to read that, please?
Sure. A proclamation to designate October as Bullying Prevention Month. Whereas school bullying has become an increasingly significant problem in the United States and Virginia, and whereas almost 30% of the youth in the United States are estimated to be involved in bullying each year, either as a bully or as a victim, and whereas an estimated 160,000 students in kindergarten through 12th grade miss school every day due to a fear of being bullied, and whereas bullying can take many forms, including verbal, physical, and most recently in cyberspace, and can happen in many places on and off school grounds. And whereas it is important for Virginia parents, students, teachers, and school administrators to be aware of bullying and to encourage discussion of the problem as a school community. And whereas the Virginia School Boards Association has developed a model policy on anti-bullying to encourage positive behaviors and to eliminate bullying behaviors. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Stafford School Board on this 27th day of September 2016 that the school board hereby designates October 2016 as Bullying Prevention Month with the intention that the issue of bullying and its prevention be discussed in Virginia schools and classrooms during that time.
Thank you. Thank you. This is going up. Thank you very much. Next, we also have to designate October as Disability History and Awareness Month. Ms. Kidby, would you share with us?
Yes, a proclamation to designate October as Disability History and Awareness Month. Whereas the General Assembly passed Senate Joint Resolution 321 designating October as Disability History and Awareness Month in Virginia, and whereas students with disabilities often encounter difficulty being accepted by their peers and making friends, joining school clubs and community activities presents challenges for students with disabilities that their non-disabled peers do not encounter. Increasing public knowledge, awareness, and understanding of disabilities will help to ensure full participation of students with disabilities into the life of their schools. And whereas Disability History and Awareness Month will increase public awareness and respect for people with disabilities, teach future generations that people with disabilities have a rich history and have made valuable contributions throughout the United States, and ensure a better understanding that disability is a natural part of life and that people with disabilities have a right to be treated as individuals above all else. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the school board on this 27th day of September 2016 that the school board hereby designates October 2016 as the Virginia Disability History and Awareness Month.
Thank you very much. Both topics very timely, that even though we designate a month for them, we certainly hope that throughout our year we will also recognize the ideals expressed in the proclamation. Moving on to citizen comments. This evening, tonight there are two separate public hearings scheduled for this evening. First, there's public comment solely on the topic of the school board's budget priorities. As you can see, the school board draft priorities are found in agenda item 9.02. After that, we will close that public hearing, then we will move on to the general public comment, and this time is for comments on any topic other than the school board budget priorities. I read it this way so that then I will read the background for those wishing to speak one time, just knowing which hearing you are wanting to participate and address the board related to. So, be that, speakers shall identify themselves by name, address, and organizational affiliation if the spokesperson represents an organization. 3 minutes will be allotted to speakers. There are 3 buttons up there, green, yellow, and red. When you get to yellow, there will be 1 minute remaining. When red goes off, you have 5 seconds to wrap up your comments, as your 3 minutes will have expired. The chairman reserves the right to restrict the total citizen comment received at any particular meeting to a predetermined maximum number of minutes with the approval of the board. Citizen comment which is profane, abusive, or which threatens imminent physical harm shall be ruled out of order by the chairman. Although the board provides the opportunity for citizen comment, individuals desiring to register complaints against division employees or division programs, services, or activities may also utilize the procedures outlined in Policy 1113, Public Complaints. So we will first open our public hearing related to the school board budget priorities. Anyone wishing to speak on that comment, on that topic, please come forward at this time. Okay, not seeing a major run to the microphone. We will close that public hearing, and we'll move on to general public comment on any comments other than the school board budget priorities.
Wow.
Okay, again, see no rush to the podium. We will close public comment and move on to our staff report related to class size reduction preliminary results of the school board staffing initiative. I believe that will be Mrs. Kale. Before Mrs. Kale begins, I hope everyone knows that come usually November, we have a very in-depth report on our class size numbers, specific classes. Tonight's presentation is really meant to highlight for the board and others about HR needs. Where do we have hot spots? This is still a preliminary, but we will be getting an even more in-depth report in the future. But we believe that we need to also see these numbers as early as possible. And I'll turn it over to Mrs. Kale.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Benson. It's with great pleasure that I present tonight the preliminary results of the school board staffing initiative. I feel that you will be very excited about the results due to your targeted focus on reducing class sizes. And as Mrs. Hazard has already stated, this is just a preliminary report. More in-depth reports will be provided later. As we discuss this, all data is based on student enrollment as of September 20th, which was after it was the 11th day of school, following the 10 days, and as we remove no-shows. With elementary, as you can see, we obviously had new staffing standards, caps that you all have provided with the staffing standards. So we looked at the number of classes that exceeded the cap, and we compared from 2015-2016 to this current year, 2016-2017. And as you look down, we have one class in Stafford and kindergarten that is above the 24 cap. That class currently does have a full-time paraprofessional, and the other classes on the grade level still have 24. We're still monitoring that. In addition, in 5th grade, we only have 3 that are exceeding, and those 3, we monitored hot spots throughout the summer, et cetera. And as you can imagine, at times when we have classes that we're in the hot spot level, we're monitoring, and then after school starts and students have withdrawn, sometimes it does not provide for an even distribution. So in those cases, that's what's happened, but the average cap is certainly the average is below the staffing standard cap, and we are monitoring those in addition. I think certainly you will be very proud to see that in 2015-16, we had a total of 60 students, not proud to see that were exceeding the cap, but we're certainly proud that now we just have 4 left that we are monitoring, and it's been decreased by 56. And in Stafford County, we have 533 elementary classes, and to think that we only have 4, and still we're monitoring those 4. We haven't forgotten you. But that is pretty impressive, and that is special thanks, once again, to you all targeting those staffing
Pam,
standards.
can you tell us what classes those are, what schools those are in? Because part of our resolution that we adopted was it's supposed to be reported to us, which is part of this.
And
obviously.
that's why I have Dr. Aberg with me, who can tell you the information you need.
Good evening. There is one class at Grafton Village Elementary, 5th grade, and there are 2 classes at Kate Waller Barrett.
And for those classes, I know we're monitoring, but are we developing an action plan that may be executed at some point, course of action?
We are looking, obviously, like I stated earlier, we do have the average class size on the grade level is still below the cap. The problem that we're finding at this point in the year, often when we talk to principals, et cetera, and to teachers, it's a little hard to start moving kids, as you know. And we have to look at all of those things and put it in perspective to see what's best for our kids at the same time. And certainly, obviously, we're watching our staffing standards.
Thanks. And it's keeping us well informed. I do appreciate it.
Just to be clear, Ms. Kale, what you're saying is that there are sections at grade level that are below that number, but
Yes.
but there's a
Thank you.
concern about moving kids at this point from classes that they've been accustomed to, correct?
Yep.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Which is certainly something for us to understand and weigh as
Right.
well. It's
Like I
not
said,
always- It's
sometimes-
always black and white and
Exactly.
hard line.
And when they withdraw, it's not
That's
always
right.
out of the class, right?
Yep, thanks.
How much do we exceed that class size standard by?
One student.
Just one student in each of those 3?
Those 3 classes.
Okay. That's remarkable. I can't imagine the stress you all went through monitoring that. I mean, because who knows what's going to show up, between what's registered and coming and
Standing out
going,
front
and
of the
did a
classroom every morning
remarkable
with the
job.
clicker.
Yeah, great job.
I have to say, Dr.
And
Aberg has
are
worked very
we-
hard.
Do we have any resources we're going to allow to those classes, or?
That's something certainly that we're able to look at, support that we can offer in perhaps another area with paraprofessional support or
I'm sure those teachers would greatly appreciate it. Just one last question. Kate Waller Barrett's a Title I school. Aren't there certain requirements that we have to meet with respect to Title I schools with class sizes that,
in the kindergarten through 3rd grade, yes.
oh, so not a, wow.
We do keep a very close eye on them as well, but the class size reduction program impacts the kindergarten through third grade. Their fourth and fifth grade are held to the division staffing standard.
Okay, so their lower grades are actually below our standards, are they not?
Yeah, in most cases, yes.
Okay.
Or at your equivalent to your staffing standard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was exciting news, wasn't it? Now stay tuned for more exciting news.
That's what we like to hear.
At our secondary level, we compared the information that you all receive at the beginning of the school year after the 10th day regarding sections of 32 students or more. Please know that with this, we did increase with 51 students at middle school and 147 students at high school. If we compare between 2015-16 and this current year, at middle school, we've decreased by 10. And at high school, we've decreased by 60. Now, I have to say a lot of that's been done because we've certainly listened and tried to work on scheduling. I know Mr. Nichols and I have met often with our principals, and Mr. Nichols is certainly the guru of scheduling, and he has done a fantastic job of working with their principals, and they've worked hard too to try to make sure the scheduling works to even out some of the classes, et cetera, before the school year starts. So I applaud their efforts, and I know that we can keep on working on that endeavor. But I think that's pretty impressive. So, in addition, please know do you have any other questions with this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell me the question, Queen.
It's okay.
Can we get, I don't need this tonight, but I'd like to get a breakdown of those 75 and 51 classes that do exceed the 32. Particularly interested in whether they're core subjects.
Yes, you have those. It is attached to
is
your
there?
school board agenda. And I can
Why-
also,
It's one of the
Oh, it's
attachments.
attached. Ah, I didn't look underneath. Where is it?
so you have that
It's not
information.
attached. Oh,
The agenda.
I meant a copy.
I will get you a copy.
I'm a
Okay.
paper person.
I will get you that copy.
Okay, thank you. And I know that's a question we get a lot from parents, so perhaps we can, make that information available if it's not, posted on the website. Because I know a lot of parents are concerned if the classes are larger, to see how they compare, with others as well. I mean,
Yes.
it's good progress, remarkable
Yes.
for elementary and really good for high school, but I think we really need to do some more work on the middle for the next year.
Right.
Or maybe that's a board issue for where we're going to, focus our resources.
And that was part of the reason of bringing this tonight, and what my opening comments were meant to say is as we start to look at that. I'll get to you next. Ms. Goodby was next.
And we are still looking at that information. For example, on Friday, we just opened a position. I say we, HR just opened a position for, I think it was Shirley High Middle School. And today, .8 was provided to Mountain View High School. So we continue to monitor.
That's one thing I was noticing, that it looks like Shirley Heim Middle School needs a math teacher. And I know it's very difficult in some of these subject matters, particularly at a middle school level, interestingly enough, to be able to find some of these teachers that are properly certified to be able to teach these classes. It can be very problematic this time of year. Thank you, Ms. Kale.
We do have a number of positions that are open, and of course, at the middle school level and high school, if they aren't, until they're filled, we will keep them, and then we will divide classes later.
Mr. McCasker? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have an additional question? Okay, sorry.
She done? Yeah, no,
Yep.
thanks a
I'll
lot.
ping
Just
pong.
real quick, the elementary, outstanding. We've got the baseline there. Good, it's a good start. And then we can move from that baseline, go down even further if we have the funding available in accordance with the budget priorities. Now, the middle school, I am looking at the attachment 4, and it is a lot of the math and the English. And I think that's what the board's hearing with their constituent as well. So I think we're really going to have to go off-site and discuss where do we think we want to go with the minimums on math and English. Within our the affordability index, if you will. So I mean, that's just a big concern, and so I'm just going to voice that like some of my compadres did here.
Any other questions?
Thank you, and we certainly appreciate your intentional efforts of focusing on class sizes at all levels, and especially this year at elementary, and helping us with focusing on the scheduling, et cetera. So we look to future gains in the future.
Well, and I think these documents, when you sort of really pick them apart, it was interesting to say that, you know, we increased by 346 elementary students. That was really where we had a huge increase, 51 at middle school, 147 if my math's correct. So we had about an increase about 550 students, which, I don't know, my math's pretty bad. That's like a 1 or 2% increase in our student population. So, you know, just sort of something for us to
Exactly.
keep, you know, something for us to keep in mind in general. If we like seeing these signs, but as we increase just the total number of students in our schools, we're going to run out of space at some point. I mean, I know several of my schools have 7 sections of many and multiple grade levels. Looking at one principal I know who does. And, but I think it was great work that the board did to say, we would love to, I believe it's Dr. Benson's, if everything's important, nothing's important. So this year last year we did pick and target elementary. We always are going to find that to be an important area if we can get the basics right. But moving forward, that's why we have our budget priorities. That's why we do that. And I think as we look at those standards, as we see how the school year, and we look at those reports that we receive in November, when we even get to dig deeper, we'll begin to, you know, be able to figure out where do we go from here. Mr. McCutcheon, oh, sorry.
Just one alibi. So following the train of thought with the math and the English or whatever pops out here when we do our offsite in this winter, I think it would be good for the board and the leadership to kind of take a look at where we are really hurting for these teachers. And I know, you know, just off the cuff, you can say math and you can say English, but let's really take a good look as a division where those 3 hot spots are, so that we can start a plan to hire these folks this winter, so we can execute it before the new, you know, so we're not executing in June for a month later for a contract signing. So we can execute it this winter, the hiring plans. You know, that's just, okay.
Ms. Healy.
Now that I've seen the chart, there are 2 schools that have 0 over the target, but yet we have a school with 22 classes over, another school with 15, or 2 schools with 15. So something's being done right, and then other ones have a way to go. So I'm happy to see that there are 2 schools that do not exceed any of their classes. That's wonderful. But I'm also unhappy to see there's a school with 22. And certainly when we get up to 35 students, that's just way too many. So I think that, you know, there definitely is work to be done, and I don't know if it's in, you know, how they're being assigned within the schools, or, you know, where the staffing is gone. You know, I'd like to get a further explanation of this. It's good. I'm really pleased that we have schools that don't exceed, you know, the goal. We have 2 of them, but these other ones are, you know, I of concern. No, I'm looking at the middle school. We've got 2, which are H.H. Poole and Stafford Middle School, which is wonderful. They're, you know, no classes in those schools exceed the target, 32 classes. But then we have a school with 22.
Dixon Smith.
Yeah, Dixon Smith Middle School. Am I looking at the right attachment? There's so many, that's why,
I'm looking at number 3. I'm looking at the same one you were.
yeah.
One's 15 and one is 16.
Well, I'm looking at middle school enrollment highlights.
Right.
Number of sections equals 20, 32, 33, 34, and
That was
35.
last year.
That was 2015.
Oh.
2016.
You know what, that's
These are
what,
in order.
that's why I like to have it in the paper. I can look at the paper, and
Yeah, they're not in order.
I've got attachment 3, 6, 2, 1, 5, and 4.
Please note that if I'm not mistaken, all middle and all high schools except for one decreased in the number of sections they had 32 and over. compared to the 2 years.
Okay, all right. I will study them, and I'll ask my questions. I'll call you later.
Okay, great.
And remember, we will be,
Print it off.
we will be bringing this back with the really very in-depth report presented in a different way.
I thought that was just some-
This was very helpful, though, to give us that baseline of where are we from where we were last year? And I hope everybody takes away from this, we are in a much better place, not just because of the board, but because of staff and scheduling and great hiring. So I think that
Madam
it
Chair,
is something to rejoice.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I have one more. Pam, we talked middle and we talked
Shares middle school.
elementary.
Uh-huh.
Also, so high school, where do you all think I can see what we have, 32, 33. Let me make sure it's the right year. That was last year. Okay, hold on. Let me look at it.
Good, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Let me look at attachment 6. Okay, so we have 32, 33, 34. So where do you see the center of gravity problem here in high school?
Well, like I said, when we looked at it again and we revisited, we today released a .8 to Mountain View High School.
None with none.
Yeah.
In addition, some of it will continue to be work on scheduling. That's not all of it. Obviously, we will be looking with, and that's Mr. Nichols working with our Human Resource Department to see. It is often, as you can see, you have a variety of classes. Obviously, in these, when we look at the high school, we exclude health and PE and music, so please know that up front. And these, obviously, once again, I repeat, they're for the enrollment as of September 20th, because there are odds that some of it has changed. So just remember that in case you hear about some other class.
It seems that the two IB schools are the ones that are really heavy with the 32, 33, and 34 students. It seems Brook Point and Mountain View. I mean, Stafford High School has like one class over. North Stafford has no classes over 32. Colonial Forge has 5, but Mountain View has 34 classes. Is that
And some of those.
why is that an IB issue? Is this other than IB classes that are listed here?
Well, you've got a variety, as you can see. You've got an IB Psych, you've got DE English, you've got honors classes, you've got a whole variety at their school.
So that may be something, Dr. Benson, we need to take a look at. It's a little anomaly, what we call an anomaly there. So I just trying to figure out what's
And
going
I think
on.
Mountain View, a couple years ago, a position was pulled, so we're trying to work that back, that type of thing. So there's some other issues. So we have to look at all of it.
Madam Chair, if I may, sometimes what can cause these kinds of things has to do with the way the administration feels they need to allow students or teachers to collaborate with one another. And so if there is a department or a series of departments that want to have a common planning period so they can collaborate and meet the needs of the students, then sometimes that'll create these kinds of anomalies that you're seeing. So I wouldn't necessarily attribute it to IB or AP or anything like that. It may have to do more with the needs of the students and the staff in order to be able to communicate with one another about student progress. Those common planning periods for the teachers are invaluable for them to be able to talk with one another and see what the needs of the students are across curriculum areas. So I wouldn't want to even begin to second guess these administrators in terms of the way they're doing this.
Please, I hope I wasn't second guessing. I was just bringing a question. Oh, sure. So that's the question, and so we need to take a look at it.
Right. And some schools, of course, have certain priorities that they're going to have lower class sizes in certain core areas, too.
All right, thanks.
But one school has none exceeding. So that means it can be done, right?
Potentially.
We will keep plotting.
Well, in November, or when we get our really in-depth report, we'll probably be able to see even more that, again, this was sort of a hash mark,
Right.
tally mark, here's where we are. So it's good. So I think that's great. So, okay, any further comments or questions?
Thank you.
When this comes back, Madam Chairman, can we have a set, or can I have a set? I don't want to speak for the rest of you, you might like the computers, but, you know, when it comes back, I'd like a hard copy so I can study it. It's hard to be switching back and forth, and much less keeping track of what year they're in, and we got 6 numbers and
We'll get you one, don't worry.
lots of papers.
All right, moving on to superintendent's comments. Dr. Benson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No comments this evening.
Roll on the comments. Okay. All right, well, looking at
He said he's got a communications.
section,
Take care of that.
okay, we have 8 here. Anybody want to move for consent agenda?
Move for approval of consent, please.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent items 801 through 806, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our action items. First one is to nominate and approve a school board representative to the Head Start Policy Council with the term commencing October 2016, ending 2017.
Do you have someone?
I am willing to continue, at least at this
I
time. to
nominate
serve.
Ms. Hazard.
I second Ms. Hazard.
Well, thank
Madam
you.
Chair, motion to approve 9.01 with Mrs. Hazard as the appointee.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. How'd that bus feel?
I would like to say, I did attend the meeting last week, and we have a whole new set of parents joining and being a part of the policy council. It was so wonderful. We had at least, I would say, 6 new parents there. Wonderful, really engaged. It was really delightful. I would like to say, again, I know I offered this last year, I really think it would be neat if the board, and we may invite our counterparts across the street to go and serve a meal on Monday night at Head Start when we have, they are doing some additional classroom training and things that night, and I know local churches and other places get involved in taking a meal and serving that night. I think it would be a great thing for the board to consider later. I will have a calendar and send it out, so, sorry, that was my plug. All right, moving on to 9.02, regarding the school board budget priorities. Ms. Kidby, were you going to speak to this initially, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have to
The
make a
Finance
motion
and Budget
first?
Committee
It's an
did
action
meet, took into consideration some of the recommendations that were made in relation to the draft of the school board priorities and goals for our budget for this coming fiscal year. You'll notice on the red line version that we did make some changes as requested by specific board members. I invite you to take a look at that red line, those red lines, and if you have any questions, we certainly, as a committee, like to address those questions. But this, at this point, this is the list of budget priorities and goals that the committee is recommending in draft form. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Point of order, I think, Madam Chair.
Sure.
Do we need to make a motion first before we start talking about this?
We can.
Action item?
We can, well, it is on for action, since this is our budget priorities. I thought Ms. Kidby giving the direction from the FAB committee, if after her report, I was wondering if there was going to be a motion or not.
Well, I move for approval.
I'll second.
Okay, now we can discuss
All right.
any further. Are there
Any further
Yeah,
discussion? How about we go there? Sorry.
That's okay.
It's okay.
Are there any comments?
I do.
Yes.
I'm just trying to read it here, just sort of based on some of the information that we received here, because I couldn't recall how we had changed the classroom sizes priorities, because I think it is important that, we're heading in the right direction. We did the right thing last year, assigning those priorities, really taking the budget to the Board of Supervisors based off of those priorities, and then we're able to fund to that priority, which we just saw. We accomplished what we set out to do in reducing class sizes at elementary school level. And what I was going to say, because the original verbiage said something along the lines, continue implementation of elementary school, and then there was a second one for focus on high school, middle school and high school. What I was going to say to that is, do we want to make any sort of more direct statement that this year it's middle school and high school that we are going to be focusing on, while at the same time continuing to ensure that the elementary school doesn't fall off the radar?
I think when we were in our committee meeting, the reason that we didn't make it specific is because we wanted to be kind of flexible with where the most need was without being kind of painted into a corner as far as, well, your budget priority said that you're going to do this one. Well, we need it more on the high school level at this point. So I think that was kind of the thought process.
Part of the thought. Also, if you'll notice in the red line, it says continued implementation of the school board approved staffing plan. And that's a dynamic document. So that will allow us to be able to tweak that document based on the needs for any particular year, and at the same time, have that a budget priority based on that document. So we thought that would be sufficient, rather than specifying elementary, middle, or high, that we could specify the staffing
And
plan.
while it's under the heading reduce class size, I like the statement, and I agree with you, and I know what that's the intent. What I'm concerned about the statement is, could it be construed the continued implementation of the school board approved staffing plan? Well, there's a lot of things in that staffing plan, and I don't want to be taken off on a tangent.
Outside of class.
Yeah, so
sizes. I
can
hear what you're
can that sentence end with something along the lines, continued implementation of school board approved staffing plan as it relates to class size
Class
reduction?
sizes.
Particularly as it relates to, would that be a good word to put it?
Sure.
Works for me.
Mr. Hirons, would you restate the, I know.
No, Ms.
clerk is
Kidby's
super-
going to. Continue implementation of the school board approved staffing plan
Or as relates to.
as relates
Particular-
to
It's to class size.
Size.
class size reduction.
And I know that I
Is that a
heard,
friendly amendment?
It is if you accept it.
I'll accept it.
There's no hostility on this board.
does that meet where we're going, knowing that we may refine that going forward, but at least I believe that getting out to our community as well, what our budget priorities are, is important. Now, if there is a thought to make that any more specific, this would be the time to entertain that.
I think my opinion, it's got as much specificity as it needs, so I'm good with it.
Too.
Okay.
I just have a question, and I'll address this to Ms. Kibbe. Can you give us a little more information about the reallocation of resources among schools with large student populations based on different types and numbers of student populations that comes under the heading of reducing the classroom sizes?
Reallocation of resources among schools with large populations based on the different types of numbers and students' populations. That particularly has to do with our schools that, not only the schools that are Title I, so not specifically just Title I schools, but also schools that may have high ESL populations that aren't necessarily Title I. Certainly schools just with high numbers. We have elementary schools that the numbers are significantly higher, but they're not Title I schools. And so we would want to make sure that we really reallocate resources, whether they be office staff, administrative staff, or frontline teachers, to those schools, keeping in mind their population needs, whether they be specific to special ed, ESL, free and reduced, or simply number of students. We were hoping that that statement would cover that.
And I guess my question is, it comes under the heading of reduced classroom sizes. And I know when we talked about it before, we talked about what you just explained, which was overall resources.
Oh, I hear what you're saying.
But it's, it's under reducing classroom sizes, so
Maybe it
I
should be a
just don't want it to be
priority.
confusing to someone if we understand what it is, but when we put it out there without an additional explanation.
Ms. Healy, would you think it should go under the priorities when you go a little further down? It says priorities, and it says implement priority staffing standards from the approved staffing plan. Would that reallocation of resources potentially go better there?
But, I mean, it's been a while since I looked at that approved staffing plan, but I'm not
'Cause it
sure that we
covers
really
everything.
included, doing it based on we talked about having the plan be based on the student count, but I don't know that we actually put that into the plan. I mean, I want that item in there. I think it's important.
Yeah, I do
But
too.
I think we probably have to clarify that language a little more, because the way you just explained it was the way I understood it. It's not just among schools with large populations, but among schools with, different needs, student needs. Because the way this has the conjunction, it says large populations based on the different types and number of student populations. It looks like it's limited to schools, with large student populations. But the way you explained it and the way I understood it, it wasn't necessarily the largest schools. I mean, there's certainly going to be somewhere to start, but there might be a smaller school that has certain populations that needs additional resources.
That's why I'm trying to figure out if that should be a I'm trying to figure out where to move it without losing it.
Right, well,
Yeah, I don't know where
One,
we'd put
one
it.
would be, like I said, the priorities might be, because that follows the implement priority staffing standards from the approved staffing plan.
well, what about under enhancement? I mean, it doesn't necessarily all have to be funding. I mean, indirectly, everything's funding, perhaps directly.
I'd put it under that.
Move it from, keeping it in reduced class sizes, but take it from the baseline to enhancement. Was that, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm, I'm fine with that move. I think we understand what we're trying to capture. I just want to make sure that, because I know there's been some comments recently for our large schools that I think that's something, or at least several of us, I think, get those comments more often maybe
Right,
than others,
right.
that I don't want to lose it either.
Well, and I think we've done that because we've given some additional clerical support, administrative support to some of the larger schools, and they've been very appreciative, of it. It's very much needed, but it's not necessarily in the staffing plan, because that's going to be something that can change from year to year.
Right.
Maybe what we need to do is change the heading a little bit. Reduce classroom sizes / school staffing. Just put a / school staffing. So then it could fit under that category. We wouldn't have to move it at all.
Make sure that's not interpreted as reduced.
These clips. That's right, that's what I was saying. Could it,
Yeah.
Dr. Benson, could it be reduced classroom sizes and
Enhance school staffing in general or
or,
something like that?
and student, and delivery of student, somehow that it's tied to our delivery of services to our students, which doesn't always mean teaching, it may mean admin, I'm trying to say reducing classroom size, but it's also with regard to our delivery of
It is.
Services.
Madam Chair, if the board is interested in looking at the level of support that we provide throughout the building based upon size and demographic,
Absolutely.
then perhaps moving it to under priorities where the board has implement priority staffing standards from approved staffing plan, adding another bullet there might be an appropriate place if that works for the board.
Okay.
Because that goes along with, you're going to identify areas within the division that need additional support. Some of the language in here refers to federal and state mandates. The board's going to identify some areas that you feel where it's important to differentiate staffing.
Yeah, we
and
could just add
we're
another
gonna do
bullet
it
there.
with our own if that works for the board.
I mean, it already says fund additional teacher staff support to priority areas.
The issue is they're not necessarily a priority area until we identify them as a priority area. So that's
And the
that's
notion
what
that-
it is. And this is going to be a floating target, which can change from year to year. It's not going to be something that's going to, be necessarily the same.
And I encourage the board maybe to include the addition of a word, differentiate, that we're going to differentiate staffing based upon size and needs across the division, taking those things into consideration, because it will be different. We're looking at schools that are larger, a different level of support, and my hope would be that that would be driven by a formula that the board would adopt based upon a number of students that are being served as one potential component.
Since reallocation could be considered that reallocation means a loss for somebody to give to another, which differentiation may mean that the standard is this number should be just higher.
Well, I mean, I think that the senior leadership of the division already does the reallocation in their normal jobs. I mean, Pam and Tom Nichols, if North Stafford has a very small population, they'll move teachers, I would imagine, and support personnel from schools that need it. But I just don't know how specific you want to get. If you can just put a general statement under the priorities, then we can have more leeway as the executive body to move on stuff. That's all. I think.
I think the question right now is whether or not we're comfortable enough with the way we're going to change this wording to go ahead and approve this item tonight. Or would the board prefer to have a cleaner copy with some changes brought back to us next time for action?
My preference as a FAB committee person is let's bring back a clean document.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
We should bring back a clean copy, reword that. Thank you, Ms. Healy, for your suggestions. I think that they're valid and very right on. And let's clean this up a little bit, and then we'll bring it back.
Yep.
And what we're looking at is exactly what you explained. It's just
Exactly. Right.
having it in here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Fab, does that keep us on our timeline for budget?
It does.
We'll be all right. All right.
I just want to say, Madam Chair, I do appreciate, I had the salary lapse thing in which you all jumped on me, but, my concern was, and I do appreciate you keeping it in the document.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
the salary lapse, it was something that, if we don't move on it in a timely manner, you can't hire new FTEs and teachers on that salary lapse money, and we have to use it as one time. So that's why I just felt it was such a big deal to really, but I see you have it in there as monitor monthly.
Right.
So that we can do that, and that's fully satisfactory, but.
All right.
Yeah, it's the end of the year, a big pile up, we just can't do that anymore, or else.
Absolutely.
The students
Yeah.
of the county kind of lose when we do that, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mercosio. And so I'll withdraw my motion.
Does the seconder agree? I think we can, all right. Yes, we're going to defer this to the October 11th meeting. Is there a motion to defer? How about-
I seconded her initial motion.
I withdrew my motion.
She withdrew it, so do I have to second the withdrawal?
No?
No.
Okay. All right. So it appears, does everybody agree with, since it's been withdrawn, we're fine. So you will see it on October 11th. Moving on to 9.03 regarding a joint contracting officer, Dr. Benson.
I believe board members have had an opportunity to see the draft job description for the joint contracting officer. We're asking the board to approve this in a manner similar to what supervisors have done, with the understanding that we're going to need a memo of understanding as to how the position will be managed.
So, Madam Chair, this was brought up, and this was brought up on a 3-on-3, still a carryover. I didn't see many changes. I know, Scott, I'm not sure if you looked at it. I didn't see many changes to the original, but I think this is what we need. We do have to come up with, like you said, this is the individual that he'll be our go-to guy or gal that will be on the cash, will be on the costing of our projects and the monitoring of the projects, and he or she will be the one doing the, it's the contracting officer as written, but the big thing is the costing and the monitoring and the negotiation. And what that does is that pulls both county and staff, our guys and gals, back out of the process out of that process so they can focus on their management of the actual project at hand. So I think there will be no more pointing fingers like this. You all made a mistake and you all did this. This needs to move forward. I know that the 3-on-3 agreed, Jack Cavalier, and the 3-on-3 board agreed that, and Mr. Hirons, that, I would be on the hiring panel along with, I think it's Jack and a few other folks. So was there a due out to me to do some sort of management synopsis on this, or?
No, we assign tasks to staff.
Yeah, okay, because that's what I thought. So so as soon as we get the, a good draft to myself and Scott and.
Of the memo of understanding.
A memo of understanding, then, we'll hack on it and.
So are we not taking action on this tonight?
I believe, I think there was a 3-on-3.
The job description.
Right.
Right.
I have no issues with the job description.
So I
Everything
would
in there.
move approval of item
And- yeah,
9.03.
A second.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
To Mr. Mercostro's point about any changes, and we discussed it in the 3-on-3, and I think I'm okay with it the way it is. An early draft put a little bit more emphasis on federal
government
experience, which we really need this person, and we need this job description to be focused on local government in particular, but state is just as important.
I agree.
It's, there are 1,000 contracting officers in the federal government, and a lot would probably be really excited to be able to work closer to home and here in Stafford County. But we do want to make sure they have that local experience.
Oh, okay. I thought you were putting more emphasis on the federal. I was starting to scratch my head. Okay.
Any other comments? I will make one comment. This is something I felt very strongly about. I believe this is already as a part of our current budget that we will share this position. So we have already committed to this through our budget, but I believe going forward, and I believe it's a stronger statement for the person as we advertise it to show that we also have supported this position on our side of the house. And I got the sense, just observing more the 3-on-3, that there was a sense that the Board of Supervisors wanted to make sure, even though it is in our budget. So, no further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 9.04, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve 9.04.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right.
We shouldn't go without acknowledging that this is, again,
yes.
process that we began, 3 years ago, on taking a look at our compensation and how we're paying folks and trying to improve our overall compensation and looking at new models to get us off the old models that Dr. Benson likes to pontificate about, how they were developed in the 1920s.
We could have said last century, but
Well, all century jobs, not all century compensation models.
Right.
So I'm excited that this is moving forward, and this was highly developed with the folks that it affects. So I think that's a very good thing.
A great model, and I totally agree with that. So, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to information items. Our first information item is to approve the second year of a 5-year policy services agreement between Stafford County and the School Board Association in the amount for $3,750 from budgeted funds. This is the 5-year contract. We are in the second year, but it requires an annual renewal and a signature by the chairman. That's why it is on here. It would be helpful, if there are no objections to this one, for us to move this to action so that we can comply and send everything in.
Move that we bring this to action.
Second?
All those in favor of moving 10.01 to action, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Action, this has been moved to action. Is there a follow-on motion?
Motion to approve 10.01.
Is there?
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to 10.02, information item, request to hire new licensed practical nurse. Dr. Clark?
Good evening. First of all, let me apologize for not including a cost attached to that agenda item. But as you know, in all of our schools, we have a full-time registered nurse. In addition to that, in our high schools, we have a clinic assistant who is basically there for clerical support, not really medical support. And we additionally have hourly clerical support in the elementary schools and middle schools that are over 750 students. We have 2 traveling LPNs who we've had for a number of years. And over the past over the past year for sure, our medical needs have increased. To give you a general idea, we have 12 or 13 students who come to school with a personal nurse, their own private nurse that's paid for through Medicaid services or their family health insurance. Those are obviously very severely medically fragile children. But the needs of the clinic, Margaret Brent in particular, Falmouth in particular, Stafford Elementary, have some significant needs. Daily average visits for routine bumps, bruises, medication at Margaret Brent in particular was averaging about 50 students per day, routinely coming through the clinic. It's a veteran nurse. We have a couple new nurses in other locations, but even with an LPN traveling to Margaret Brent, it's very difficult to maintain the level of care and just semblance in a clinic that size. Obviously, a large school. Conway is another school that's large, and it does vary. You spoke earlier about the variance among our schools. Size matters, but we also have Falmouth Elementary, a smaller school with significant needs, a program for students with multiple disabilities, moderate disabilities, and just a number of medical needs. So that clinic is hopping as well. A significant number of asthma cases in all of the schools, some more in particular than others, anaphylactic allergies that require immediate attention, tracheotomy care, etc. So the request, although late, is for us to hire so that we can better schedule the 2 current LPNs in the other schools and give much more concerted effort and attention to Margaret Brent. Don't know that it will be 5 days a week all day long, but it will be close to that and to that level of support that they need. We did want to wait till school settled down a little bit, so we're still assessing the needs, and as students come and go. A couple students from Margaret Brent did move out, but not enough of a relief that it's not still a priority. And then there are a couple middle schools as well that need that support from that traveling licensed practical nurse. So the amount, Mr. Fulmer reminded me, I think we're using a level 5 estimated cost of about $35,000 in a range there, close to that amount. That would include benefits. That would be a full-time LPN for the division to travel among all the schools.
What was the number again?
Probably between $32,000 and $35,000 with benefits. Some of that funding I can assume could be secured from Medicaid reimbursement. We don't know that actual amount yet, but I think Mr. Fulmer felt pretty confident that we had the funds to support that.
So, Dr. Clark, that 35,000 is including benefits?
Yes.
Okay.
It does. It's, I think, about $28,000, and then about a $7,000 benefit cost for an LPN.
How much is that? Benefits are generally about 40%, are they not?
I thought about 25. Chris?
I don't know. I thought for our other personnel, we estimate 40.
That number doesn't include the health insurance piece of it. That includes the FICA, retirement, et cetera, that's for a professional contractual FTE.
So what is the health insurance for a?
Roughly 7,000 or 8,000 on top of the numbers.
Well, there you go. That's 20% of that.
About 20.
No, that's 20% just of this salary. So,
But you had already included that in the 32
No.
or
That
35
would be
figure?
on top
of that, so,
32
okay.
number.
So now we're closer to 40.
Yeah, well, they need it. It's one FTE,
Oh.
so.
no, I think our question is, that doesn't seem like enough.
It seems low to
I
me.
just,
Yes.
I was just thrown by 35 grand for LPN, really, I was, but it is what it is. 42 is still, okay. Got
It will depend on on their experience, their skills, and where they come in on the current scale.
But I mean, we can't, I read this earlier yesterday, and this is bad. We can't have kids having, there's EpiPens and it's just a lot of work.
Well, this is going to benefit all of our schools, because right now, the traveling LPN that we have is spending, most of the time at Brent. So to the extent we can hire someone for Brent, then that's going to free up the other one to be assisting all the other schools. So if there's no objection, I'd like to move this item to action.
Yep.
It's been moved and seconded to move this item to action. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to move for the hiring of a new licensed practical nurse. Any further discussion?
Dr. Clark, I don't think you have to be nervous about the approval. It's more, we want to make sure we're doing enough.
Right.
And you did say that you're continuing to assess. Do we think we may end up during this year having you in front of us again, asking for another one?
I don't think so. Again, we have a new administrator of health services. Thank you for that as well. She's came to us a few weeks ago, so she's still visiting all the clinics. We might find that this levels out as well once our new nurses get very comfortable with our processes and procedures. And even some of the schools that are higher in numbers have articulated that those nurses have said, I'm okay, I'm fine. They've gotten through their general screenings, vision, hearing screenings, all those kindergartners coming through. So the start of the year is definitely more chaotic, but we have those spots that are beyond hot spots. I feel comfortable that a third LPN division-wide will be fine. We won't need to request any additional in this upcoming budget either. I tell you what we are keeping an eye on, though, at the high schools. I mentioned we have a clerical assistant full-time. They really are capable of doing only clerical. They're not LPNs. In 2 of our high schools, they are LPNs, but they're paid as clerical. So in the upcoming budget, I will again be looking at those high school clerical assistants becoming licensed practical nurses. It's not a great deal of difference in their salaries either. I think it might be close to $20,000 for all to upgrade those or reclassify those as LPNs. And then they can provide medical assistance to the high school nurses as well.
My comment would be, sort of, this goes to our comment about our budget priorities, those kinds of things that impact all our students, looking at nurses, potential position upgrades, those kinds of things. These are the kind of things I'm glad we are beginning to look at in that way, so that differentiation is a way that, I think it's great that this actually sort of proves our point on that one. So any further discussion? Oh, yes.
I just have a question for Dr. Clark, and if you don't have an answer now, you can get it to us later. We've had problems in the past securing substitute nurses, and we increased the substitute nurse pay, which is now somewhat over what McDonald's pays, which is what it was before we increased it. Actually, I think McDonald paid more, which is what I was told by some of the nurses. Are we doing okay in being able to bring in substitute nurses when our nurses want to take off?
We ended the year in a great spot. Our pool of substitute nurses increased. We consistently were able to secure nurses unless it was a last-minute call-in for illness. And the hourly rate is closer to $25 an hour for a sub-nurse now. That's very comparable to our surrounding division. So your support of that increase helped tremendously. Again, it's the start of the year. I don't know what our pool of substitutes, how great it is. We're doing our substitute training, that protocol. We're also paying the nurse substitutes for their training time, which we had not done in the past. So they spend 5-10 hours of training before they can even go into a clinic, and they're paid for that time. So we were in great shape at the end of the year. It's a little too early because we haven't had many needs yet for sub-nurses, but I'll keep you posted on that.
That's great, because, I mean, we were at a point where nurses couldn't even take off.
Right.
Because we couldn't get any subs
And
because of what we were paying.
Yeah, some surrounding divisions were paying significantly higher. So we're in line now, and it's looking good.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Dr. Clark, get hiring. All right. Moving on to 10.03, approve the use of $846,730 in school proffer funds for the Rebuild Moncure Elementary School project. I believe Ms. Kidby has an update regarding this item.
Yes, I had an opportunity, and I'd like to thank Mr. Cavalier for coming over to the school office and meeting with Dr. Benson and I concerning the most recent iteration on how to fund Moncure, the rebuild of Moncure Elementary. And I want the board to know that the reason I was involved in that meeting is I was available. It's that simple. There were other folks that have a different vested interest that were asked, but they simply weren't available, and we had a short window to have this communication. So please don't read anything other than I don't have a life. I'm going to hand out to you, each of you, I believe this is attached, but as Ms. Healy says, it's always nice to have a hard copy. So I'm going to hand one of these to each of you so that as I'm referring to these numbers, you have a hard copy to look at. This iteration that we're looking at right now speaks to the desire of the Board of Supervisors to put the community gym back into the project. I'd like you to take a look at the line that says total. When we had the last agenda item, we were looking at 34.8 million for the total. You'll notice that total is now 35.559. The difference is the gymnasium, okay? And there is a strong desire, as most of you are aware, by the Board of Supervisors to have that gymnasium back in there. And since we knew that was a strong desire, we went ahead and created a scenario with this proposal where that gym would go back in. There also appears to be an interest in funding more of the project with cash. So we created that opportunity as well. And let me speak to how we're using cash. If you'll look at the line that says 3.7 million, see where it says cash? That number consists of the 2 million that the Board of Supervisors already earmarked from our 2015 carryover funds. It also includes the 1.7 million for the cost of the land, okay, which has already been costed out. I'm going to ask you now to go down and look at the two lines that say other savings. This is more cash that will allow us to bring our overall borrow down on this particular project. 1.2 million is additional carryover money from 2015. Mr. Cavalier indicated that there may be interest. He could not speak for his board, of course, but there may be interest by his board to put another 1.2 million worth of cash into this project from the 2015 carryover number. The 1.5 is our savings from this current year. So that's additional cash that would be put into this project. So now if you look up where it says VPSA, you'll notice the borrow is less than what we originally had when we were looking at the latest scenario for the cost of this project. And that's good news. The borrow is down. So that's very good news. The other good news is those projects that Ms. Healy was concerned about in the Rock Hill District are going to be able to go forward.
Among others.
Among others, yes. So by using this approach, we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, as you were concerned about, and that was a valid concern. So we are in a position where the borrow will be less. We'll put more cash into this, but that does leave additional considerations. The agenda item speaks to one of those considerations, and it's $864,730, and that has to do with proffer money. Now, one of the proffers is appropriately put to Moncure, and that's the town center of Aquia. Those proffers are designated for that particular school. The other three proffers that we're looking at, Embry Mill, Shelton Woods, and Westgate, will still go to Colonial Forge, but what will happen now is some of the VPSA money that we borrowed for Colonial Forge will be redirected to Moncure Elementary School. And then those proffers, as designated, would go to Colonial Forge, but we'd redirect some of the other cash. So again, we'd be bringing more cash into the project. That leaves only $150,207 as a shortfall. And what we're requesting of the Board of Supervisors to consider is using some parks proffers from the town center of Aquia to be able to take care of that last $150,000. We also are going to be using approximately $500,000 of infrastructure money from our cash infrastructure. And what we're going to be delaying is an HVAC work at Gary Melcher's for the gymnasium. It's not a high priority item, and we feel that that can be delayed so that we can get the proper cash into this to be able to go forward with this project. It's important to know that the North Stafford High School gym and bleachers are going to be completed, the A.G. Wright, and Garrisonville interior finishes are going to be completed as scheduled in the CIP. So we feel that this is a viable option. When we met with Mr. Cavalier, when Dr. Benson and I met with Mr. Cavalier, he seemed to think that this was a viable option that he could present to his board. So at this point, even though it's for information, it would be very helpful if we could bring this, if it's the will of the board, to bring this to action this evening so that we have a firm decision on our board as to how to fund this particular project, be able to go forward with the project, so when the Board of Supervisors meet on the 4th of October, they can deliberate over this proposal and go ahead and take similar action if it's the will of their board.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move this to action, please.
Madam Chair,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I believe, though, this portion only relates to the proffer portion.
proffer.
So I would ask if you can hold your motion a few more minutes so we can have further discussion, so that we make
That's what I
a
was gonna
full-blown motion regarding the whole project potentially. Let's have some discussion first, not, is that all right, Ms. Ayers? That we just, let's have some further discussion before we jump in with a motion, if that's. So I would like to start with questions, comments, concerns about the proposed strategy as presented.
I have one question,
Yes.
and
Ms. Megan.
it's about the redirection of the Melchers funds. Are there any, Mr. Haran, are there any air quality issues at the Melchers facility that we're aware of? So
This is just a gymnasium at the Melchers.
Okay.
As a part of that, we did repair the roof at the gymnasium. Is that gymnasium in any use? Now, it was storage, and they did a couple things with the Head Start kids down there. But there was a thought at one point that the Parks and Rec was going to try to utilize that as a gym in the south for community basketball.
Yes, sir. The roof was repaired this summer. We plan to redo the gym floor, and when I say redo it, do what we call a annual screening of it and finishing of it now that the roof is repaired. The gym is being used by Alt Ed as well as Head Start, and the gym is open for Parks and Recs to use during the winter time, excluding the time that we have it down for maintenance. But it's open. So there are no air quality issues with the gym. This was strictly a life cycle identified to replace it. We, in fact, designed this project about 4 years ago, and we shelved it because at the time we didn't have fun. And this was when it was scheduled. We went back and looked at the project to see, talked to the maintenance folks, saw if there was any systemic issues that was driving, a high frequency of failures, gearing up, showing us that the life expectancy of the equipment was starting to reach. They felt that we could get it a couple more years, so it will be deferred as part of this in several years back to the right.
Good. Thanks.
And Dr. Benson, it is true, we have our cash capital reserve of $1.5 million. Should something, I don't want to say catastrophic, but if we do have some that has not been touched, should a project jump out of.
It makes it more palatable.
Make it, that it moves from would really like to get done to urgent and has to get done. So, Ms. Ayers, I'm sorry.
So I am also, of course, in full support of this. I don't want to throw a monkey wrench into it. I have a couple of questions to make sure as far as the procedure, make sure that we're doing this clearly and above board, because I know there have been questions before. So what I'm hearing is we're simply moving monies out of buckets and into other buckets, and is still accomplishing all of the projects that have been previously assigned those monies, specifically the proper money?
The simple answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
We are, the Colonial Forge project is in a position to be able to receive the proffers from those 3 subdivisions. And with bringing that money into that project, that frees up other money that we can then redirect to the Moncure. So, again, the short answer is yes.
Okay, I just, for the record, want to make sure that we have full awareness of that we are doing the right thing in the right way.
Absolutely.
For the right, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Hearns.
So the line that is labeled here, school proffers, 846, 730. It includes the 3 projects that the proffers are going to be directed towards Colonial Forge, and the VPSA borrow for that project is being redirected. Is that money included in the $28 million figure of the VPSA?
No.
Because it is still borrowed money then.
No, that 28.162 mil, and I can let Mr. Horan, if I'm totally off base here, correct me. But a good portion of that has not even been borrowed yet. That's future. That's money that's going to be borrowed in the future.
Right. So,
Ms. Kidby, the money for Forge has already been borrowed, so it's not going to increase our borrow from BPSA.
Yeah.
So we're going to offset that with proffers if the supervisors will support it.
and then at the end of the day, just the accounting of the numbers and reporting of the numbers is going to be correctly administratively reported, right? Because one of the big complaints from the Board of Supervisors has been, wait a minute, what is the actual cost of this school? So, you know, from this,
That's why you need to look at this bottom number.
Right, but what I'm not comfortable with is, does this include, I mean, it should, because that number is there.
It does, Mr. Hirons.
Okay.
It does.
And I would also note at the top of the spreadsheet that you can identify the funds that are specifically associated with the construction of the building versus the road versus the site work that needs to be done.
Staff was very, very thorough when they put this together so that we could easily see the total cost of the project, the total amount of the borrow in relation to this project.
And are these proffers that we actually have in hand currently in the bank, why weren't they directed towards Colonial Forge already? Because a couple of them had within the proffer statements that that's what they were for.
Yes, sir. These projects weren't, these proffer dollars weren't materialized when we executed the Colonial Forge project.
That makes sense. Yes, Ms. Healy.
I have a follow-up question to Ms. Ayers and Mr. Hirons. I think it would be more clear if this statement included the school proffers of the 252,966 and then included somehow a rollover from the Colonial Forge borrow, and you could footnote it saying that this borrow is possible because of the application of these other proffers, because we are not using these other proffers on Moncure.
Right.
We're taking the advantage of having the funds freed up. But if you want to have this accurate, and I, of course, you know, I always talk about this land cost. It is not cash that is getting put in. Now, I do appreciate the little footnote, land costs paid for by county. That's good. But then they're listing it as cash, and we are not putting the 1.7 million in as cash. So that should be listed as a county donation, county gift of land, because we're not going to pay the county a dime for that. They're not asking us for a dime for that. So we should not be showing it as cash. I mean, I question, and I'll concede you're putting this on here because I've 29 times said, why are we putting this on here? We're not paying for it. But put it on, put the footnotes, but put it accurately. Don't show it as cash on here.
It's an evaluation, it's a valuation, which increases or adds to the cost of the school itself. Just like you would have your house and the value of the land that the house is on. I think it's the same way. So I understand what you're saying as well, but it's an accounting thing.
It's a value, it adds to the value, but it doesn't increase the cost.
Exactly.
It is not a cost. But anyway, it shouldn't be shown as a cash here, to be accurate. And while we're talking about accuracy, if you do this letter, you'll change the date to today, assuming it gets approved. When we say the FY 2017 first quarters proffers, that is apostrophe S. Quarters is a possessive there, adjective, correct?
You're the math teacher.
Well, hey, who else am I going to ask?
Hey, I'm the math person, not the.
All right, well, it is not quarters without the,
Chair.
I really have a problem when we keep sending these letters across the street with grammatical errors in it, so.
Mr. McCosker.
Oh, good. Hey, thanks, Ms. Kidby and staff who worked this. This actually does make pretty good sense. But I just wanted to walk through it just so I'm clear. So we do have the total of the building as we asked for last time was 35,559, and that's with the increased size of the gym, right? So the increased square footage, the reduction of the 2,400, plus the reinstatement of the larger community gym. We see the costs listed up top, so that all makes sense. The VPS borrow makes sense. So the cash is the 2 million. That was the 2 million that the Board of Supervisors had previously agreed to. Okay, so that's coming from them. So they'll have to approve that again once we send this back over, right? Or was that already approved?
That was in the CIP, I believe, wasn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Then the school proffers, as you discussed, that makes sense. The other savings, is that from, is that the salary lapse savings, and some additional ones that the Board of Supervisors have control over?
That's the part of the,
That's the lapse.
that's the FY15.
FY15
That was
lapse,
remaining.
but so they still have
Yeah.
that
Right.
remaining, right? And then the 1.5, that's also the lapse
Yeah.
that we
That's
have.
this year.
That we have.
That's
Projected
project
savings.
This year,
for
okay.
this year.
Yes.
Okay, so
may not only
we've
be
agreed to,
salary.
okay, that makes sense. And then the park proffers that Mrs. Kidby discussed, Okay, and that makes sense. So really, the only thing out there is that movement of the infrastructure for the HVAC for Gary Melchers, which, okay. And so if we get any additional monies, will we be able to buy down even more of this, or if there's, or we're not projecting any additional money?
Certainly, if there's savings or if there's additional cash that may be freed up from some other areas in terms of cash capital items, we could redirect that money and then perhaps do some of the work that needed to be done at Melchers or somehow use it in other, but right now, this is a reconciliation that we have made in order to be able to go forward with this project. I want to bring it to the public's attention that this does still reduce the square footage by 2,400 square feet. I think it's important that our constituents, particularly of the parents and students that'll be going to the school, are aware of that reduction in square footage. It allows us, if we can approve this, to go forward with a plan and be able to get this opened as a mid-year opening in 2018. Is that?
2018. So my last question was my comment was gonna be, so we're still looking at the mid-year 2018, just to be
Right.
safe, I would imagine?
Yeah.
January 19th.
January 19,
2019.
January 19, okay. So no, I think this is good work, and I have no issue whatsoever with this. I think you've talked to some supervisors already and socialized this concept, and Jack, and I think Miss Maurer, and so good. This is good. I'm very, very happy for Moncur. This is good work.
I need to say something about. Madam Chair, if I may, just real quick, because I know that we've got a few Moncur parents in the audience, and I just want to reassure them that while we're taking some of the collaborative space away, there is still plenty of collaboration space. We're just making it just a little bit smaller in order to make it a little more affordable. So it's still there. I've been fighting the good fight, so rest assured. Thank you.
She only asked for it to be cut once or twice. That's the only thing I heard. Just-
Madam Chairman, may I ask Mrs. Kibbe, are you agreeable to making these corrections for the cash and the proffers? Just so
Absolutely.
it's clear, because if that's clarified, I can support this. I just want it to be,
I think the more specificity that we
All
put
on
in
its
this
face.
document, the better off we're going to be. We could go ahead and, as it is on the agenda item, list out specifically those proffers and speak to how those proffers are going to Colonial Forge, and we are redirecting previously borrowed VPSA money. So that's crystal clear, and also that we line item out the gift of the land at 1.7 million and the 2 million cash coming from the carry forward money of 2015.
And what's to be expected? My last statement was, and what is to be expected from the school from the Board of Supervisors when they, just to make it clear?
Sure.
You've already gave us the 2 million. Now we need this one, and this is what we're going to do, and just so they're clear on what we're asking.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Madam Clerk, are you clear on the additions, or Ms. Healy, would you make sure? Okay, if you meet with.
well, what we're going to do is to take the land cost out of the category that says cash. The cash category will read $2 million, and then there will be a land contribution, from county that will be $1,700,000. So the bottom line's going to be the same. And then on the school proffers, the proffers from Town Center of Aquia in the amount of $252,966 will be a line item. And then the total of the other proffers will be a line item, but they will be under, somebody can get the verbiage for this, but basically it'll be VPSA, borrow from Colonial Forge. Redirection or something. So then it'll be clear that amount, we're not changing anything on the bottom line, but we're just describing accurately where these monies are coming from.
All right, in that
in that line, at our last meeting, we approved a 13.03 funding strategy, reducing the 25% square footage, but we also recommended a plan going forward. Thus, I think any motion coming out of here, we need to either reconsider that one. So just if there is a motion available, I just wanted to say that we did approve that, a prior strategy, which we
Yes.
would now be changing.
Madam Chair, I move that the Stafford County School Board reconsider its September 13th, 2016 decision regarding the funding strategy for Moncure Elementary School in light of new and additional information and adopt the funding strategy just discussed, which continues the 25% reduction in collaborative space, adds a community access gymnasium, reduces the CIP borrow for the Moncure Elementary School project, and utilizes school savings in fiscal year 15, 16, and 17, as well as school and other proffer funds in the amount of $35.559 million.
Second.
We probably need a motion to move to action first. So it sounds like we're moving on this item.
That was a motion to reconsider.
Right.
Last
But the
meeting's
additional
decision.
language was a motion to do all.
Okay, so motion to, well, can we set that one aside?
Sure.
Okay, so motion to move this particular item to action, please.
Is there a second?
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to move this item to action. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item has been moved to action.
Now back to my original motion. Do I have to read it again? Or can we just vote on it?
Second.
Thank you.
All right. It has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I think we have moved forward. I will, since I have made no comment, all I will just say is, as we have just received a report talking about the increasing number of students in elementary school, we had 345. We need to get this school built in this part of the county so that we can increase the number of students in that building and to make sure that we continue to meet the needs of our elementary students. So for that reason, I will be supporting the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on, thank you, everybody, for your attention to this and continuing to work with us. Ms. Egan, can you read us into closed session?
I can. Let me just see if I can refresh this.
Or whoever has it.
Today's the 27th, right? Closed session.
11:01.
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, I move. Is there another one? There's another one, isn't there? I refreshed it.
There
should be two.
2.207.
Gotcha,
We're not
okay.
coming back after closed session, right?
We have to read back in.
Just to read back in,
Yeah.
right?
Pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, I move that the Stafford County School Board convene a closed meeting to discuss the compensation of personnel pursuant to the personnel exemption at Section 2.2-3711A1 and protection of privacy of individuals and personal matters that not related to public business pursuant to the protection of privacy at Section 2.2-3711A4 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are in closed session.